When last week when we did the podcast, the first thing that you mentioned, Costin, was how one-sided the
Mm.
conflict appeared in the very beginning, and then we all kind of wondered what kind of cyber activity was happening in the background. Obviously, there had to have been a lot of cyber activity. Now we're starting to see reports, and I want to start with the predatory sparrow stuff. Um, big reporting this week about Predatory Sparrow back in action in Iran, breaking into banks, breaking into Novitech cryptocurrency exchange and burning up to $90 million, like burning it into like these vanity wallets. Juan, as a Predatory Sparrow guy you've written reports on them years ago, what can you tell me about what is actually happening on the ground, what we know?
Well, I don't know that how much I can tell you about what's actually happening on the ground. And I say that because when I wrote about Meteor Express, which is a name for the cluster that I want to keep returning to, because keep in mind that like Predatory Sparrow is a hacktivist persona that this threat actor is coordinating, and they use multiple and they've burned them before. So
Let me,
it's like it would be like us talking about like Gucci for 2.0 over and over when really we meant, Fancy Bear, who we also employs this as one of their covers. So, not to get too pedantic, but the running thread here is there is some threat actor that we've called Meteor Express in 2021. They've been around since before that, and they use many hacktivist personas, including Predatory Sparrow, Adalat Ali, Indra, and a few other ones. And there's some that we suspect is them, and there's enough stuff around it circumstantial to assume that they're connected. But, once we get into what's happening in this past week, we'd be lying if we could say that we have the same level of certainty with which we were addressing the 2021 attacks or the 2023 attacks, because we haven't had any time. We don't have any indicators. We only have claims. So very quickly, like the standard of reliability of our reporting drops sharply. But if folks can kind of give us some leeway to speak openly, knowing that we're not speaking with certainty, then there's a shit ton of stuff for us to talk about, including this Novitex thing, including the SEPA Bank, and Adalat Ali activity. The amount of cyber in this is insane.
you use the word hacktivist, which suggests it is not necessarily a nation state government backed thing. What's the reality of what this Meteor Express Predatory Sparrow is? Is this
I think
8200 involvement? Like
no,
when you say hacktivist, it sounds like normal
yeah,
everyday folks just picking up arms and doing it on behalf of
no.
nationalistic. What are
It's
we looking at
intended
here?
to be. It's using hacktivism as a cover for action, and that's how I discussed it in. I believe I talked about this at CyberWarCon 2023, maybe. Which actually, that talk ends with a discussion of Meteor Express and
So
Predatory Sparrow.
why are we using hacktivist then? Why
Well,
are we using hacktivist to describe it?
we should not be, we may not, but that is the presentation that the groups are trying to give themselves, right? Like Predatory Sparrow, even especially Adalat Ali, like hacktivism like the hacking part of it is a small subset of the activism part of it that you're getting from groups like Adalat Ali that are literally looking for like just asking for regime change. Like they're literally asking for protests, right? It's like activist, a broader form of like influence campaign. But to address your question more directly, I wasn't trying to dodge it. Obviously, we have no idea on an attribution standpoint, like what organization is involved. Um, I think we're very hard pressed to look at this and think that it's not, you know, Israeli nation state aligned to a point where it's like, and like the capabilities involved and the fact that it's been happening for like 6 fucking years, it's hard to look at that and say, man, no, it's just some very dedicated hacktivists. I don't think that's the case. I think you'd be hard pressed to think that's the case. But I also would point out that I don't know that it matters. Like I think in the sense of I don't know that it. How do I put this correctly? I think the bigger issue here, the more interesting thing here, is a shift in warfare doctrine that includes cyber by one of the preeminent, indisputable cyber powers, like top cyber powers in the world. And it's a landmark thing. Like, it's hard to discuss it in abstraction right now because we're so close to it. It's happening right now. But keep in mind that what we're seeing is probably the biggest event in quote unquote cyber war. Don't love the term. I would say cyber at war, or cyber in war. But more importantly, involving it at all these different layers of war is what we've been kind of waiting to see and expecting to see for a very long time, and have not seen it proper. Like, I know we discussed the Ukrainian war and cyber in the Ukrainian war extensively, but Russia is not a cyber enabled nation or cyber power anywhere near the range of what the Israelis or what the Americans or certain European nations could do. So we haven't seen like a proper system of systems style war that includes cyber openly ever. So this is really, I mean, it's an interesting and exciting time from the perspective of trying to understand developments in cyber at war.
Hamid, to you, does it matter if it's described as hacktivists or if it's nation state or what, or you're just focused on what the outcome is?
This is actually, like, Juan touched on a pretty interesting thing. Like, I'm going to go with the timing first, because if you, like, all these groups, hacktivists, government associated, APTs, or whatever you want to name, or whatever they want to be named, it only matters and it's only obvious if you have been watching and observing them over a very long period of time. And by that, I mean at least 4 or 5 years, or as long as they have been into existence. And in most cases, actually way before that. Like, if you look at Labdukhan, everyone knows them from their Telegram channel. But if you know what you have been looking for, and you have been like observing the kind of context and the kind of operations that they have been trying to pull off, they actually go way back. Like, I'm talking about 2015, 2016, from some random anonymous blog that changed name later on, that changed name again, and then became a website, and then they became some online group, and then became a Telegram group, and then changed another like, it's a long history, but the content and the context has always remained the same. So it doesn't really matter what we call them or what they want to be called. You should look at what they have been trying to achieve over a long period of time, how successful they have been, and what sector or what industry or what agenda they are focused on. And if you look at the groups like hacktivists, APTs, again, whatever, that are focused on the region and the Middle East and in Iran, you could pretty much draw some lines on what they are focused on. Like, if you look at on Sparrows, you kind of guess what they are about to and where their interest lies, which is mostly like taking down big systems, affecting like critical infrastructure, going after like targets that actually have kinetic impact. And that, like, when that usually happens, almost always it's response to something or some action that the Iranian government has done in the region. And if you go past, like, you could like match them one-to-one into events that has been happening in the past. Every single case, literally every single case.